I'll start off by saying I never believed in the supernatural or paranormal. The things I'm going to tell y'all have been happening to me since around 2009. My wife is a huge fan of the show, hence why I am posting from her account LOL, and suggested I post my experiences here to see if anyone else can relate or understand, so without further delay I'll start from the very beginning. My name is Mason. I'm from a small town in Alabama. The first time I ever saw her was my senior year in high school. When I say her, it's because I don't know who the lady is and she only appeared in my dreams. It was around April of 2009, and like every senior I was ready to graduate and start my life. I had a pretty normal childhood. I mean, it wasn't the best, but I am grateful for what I did have. My parents had been divorced since I was in elementary, so up until my senior year I had been living full-time with my mom and visiting my dad on the weekends. I have a sister who is 6 years older than me, so she had already moved out, and my senior year I decided to stay with my dad because it was closer to my job and my school. My dad had remarried and my stepmom had 2 kids of her own, a daughter a few years older than me and a son the same age as me almost to the day. Him and I would have to share a room, but he was pretty cool and he was always going out with friends or his girlfriend, so I got the room to myself most of the time. One night my stepbrother was gone and was staying over at his friend's house, so I had the room to myself. It was a decent-sized room, so my full-size bed and his full-size bed both fit in our enough room for his desk and dresser and my desk and dresser to fit comfortably in beside each of our beds. That night I had worked till 10 p.m. and since it was a Friday night I decided to shower and just crash. I got a shower and flopped down on my bed. I remember falling asleep with the light on. I started to dream, but it was different than any dream I had ever had before. It was so vivid and real. I remember I was in the gym of my high school and I was walking to the locker room. I kept hearing a girl crying and I came into the shower area. All the showers were running and in the middle of the locker room was a girl. She had long black hair covering her face and was sobbing. Well, first of all, this was a boys' locker room, so I thought, what is she doing in here, but ultimately walked up to her and right as I put my hand on her shoulder she shot up and I remember just stumbling backwards. She has no eyes. Just holes where they should be, and that's where I woke up. I woke up so fast that it didn't dawn on me I was in complete darkness. I know I fell asleep with that light on. I stood up and I started to panic. Standing across the room was a dark mass. All I could make out was hair. Long dark hair. I pulled the switch to the light and nothing. I punched myself to make sure I was awake, and let's just say I didn't go back to sleep until I seen the sun coming up. Fast forward a few years. I have my own apartment and I'm living with my now wife. We have a king-size bed, but with my wife and our 2 dogs I get stuck on the outside sliver of leftover mattress LOL. So one night everyone was asleep and I had got up to pee. It was around 4 a.m. I stumbled to the bathroom, did my business, then got back into bed. Nothing out of the ordinary. I sleep on my side, so I had faced my wife, but sometime I rolled over to face the wall, which also faces the door looking out into the hallway. Due to our dogs we leave the door cracked in case they get thirsty or hungry. It's pitch black dark, so I half the time roll without even opening my eyes, but this time I did, and when I rolled to face the door she was there. Her long hair covering her face. She was at the side of my bed hovering over me. I sat up so fast I ended up pushing our small Yorkie off the bed, which I apologized for, but in the moment I was terrified. I turned the light on and woke up my wife and our other dog. A huge German Shepherd. But once the light was on, nothing. She was gone. My wife believes in all the strange things, so she and I both got up and just decided to start our day. The last time I seen her was the worst and the scariest of all. This happened December of 2024. I work 30 minutes away from our home. I'm currently on 3rd shift, same as my wife. We both work at a plant, but she is in a different area, so we often ride to work together. That night she had been sick and was staying home, so I got to drive the long dark back roads alone. About halfway though my drive is what we call the double bridge. It's pretty much 2 small bridges over a big river, but my wife hates driving over it at night. She said it gives her the creeps. She will literally shut her eyes until I've crossed both bridges and tell her it's safe. I personally don't mind them, but tonight just felt different. I tossed it up to my wife not being with me, so maybe my body was just off because our routine was messed up. I crossed the first bridge no issues, but before I got to the second I seen what looked like a person in the middle of the bridge. I slowed down thinking maybe someone with car trouble, but the closer I got I saw no car or no sign of anything wrecked. When I was almost to the person and began to roll my window down, I almost pissed my pants when I realized it was her. This time the hair was out of her face, but her mouth was wide open. I sped up almost immediately. Then I heard it. It was a scream, but not just any scream, it was unworldly. I have never heard anything like it before. Like what I'm going to assume a banshee scream sounds like, mixed with a mountain lion. I sped the rest of the way to work and called my wife as soon as I got there. All night I was a mess, looking over my shoulder, jumping at the smallest sounds. I almost didn't want to drive home the next morning, yet I knew it would be daylight then, so I drove home and sped the whole way. I know I crossed those bridges in record time. I haven't seen her since then, but I am getting horrible anxiety because I never know when she will come back. There are no patterns to her appearances, and the dream was one thing, but the being in my home and then the scream, God, that scream. Who is she? What does she want? Do any of y'all have any answers? I just want her to go away. Ever since I was a child, I've always been more sensitive to the paranormal. My mother would tell me that I would stare in corners, or at places at the ceiling and just talk to nothing, or I would point. Now, I don't remember all of this, but I assume it's true considering I'm still quite sensitive. My father would always write it off as me just being a weird child, though he did admit it creeped him out. The earliest memory I have of this happening was when I was about 5 years old. I was asleep, and I had gotten woken up for some reason. I don't remember why, but I can only assume that it was because I could feel something watching me. It was in the middle of the night, and our family cat was sleeping near me on my bed. I had this feeling of anxiety as the feeling of being watched intensified. I was facing the wall with my back to the door. I can't remember if it was open or closed. I slowly turned over to face the doorway, and I freeze. My whole body just tenses up with raw fear, and I could feel my heart beating faster in my chest. There, between my door and my dresser, was a dark shadow about 6 feet tall. The shadow wasn't what scared me, it was the glowing red eyes staring at me. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I wanted my mother or father, that were sleeping upstairs, to come down and protect me from whatever this thing was. In my 5-year-old mind, I was thinking monster. The only thing I could do was flip back over onto my other side and hug my cat, which had gone tense, and start silently crying, begging in my mind for it to go away. I think I eventually fell back asleep, because I remember waking up, and it being morning. I don't remember ever mentioning it to my parents, considering there are blank spaces in my memory growing up. I really only remember the terrifying moments from growing up. If I ever did tell my parents, they either blamed it on my overactive imagination, or told me that everything was fine. After that first encounter, things just felt wrong. I was more anxious as a kid, and never wanted to sleep with the lights off. My father didn't like that I needed a nightlight, but I would always cry if I didn't at least have a lamp on while sleeping. My parents never really experienced anything from this, and neither did my little brother. Which makes me wonder if it was specifically interested in me. I had never felt that scared before of something, and I admit that I still to this day sleep with a small lamp on. Dark places terrify me, especially if I'm alone. What happened next was the vivid nightmares that began when I was about 9. The nightmares were always the same. Same place, same situation, same raw fear I would feel. There would only be a few times where the nightmares would be a little different, but not by much. For 7 years, these nightmares would persist, making me terrified to sleep. I would never know if I was going to be trapped in some abandoned place, being chased and hunted by something. The nightmare would start off with me in some abandoned building. Sometimes a hospital, or the house I currently lived in. I would get this automatic feeling that I needed to get out before something found me. I would run, and run, and run. Always having the feeling at my back that something was hunting me down. I knew if it found me, nothing good would happen. I would find little places to hide, and just before this thing would find me, I would wake up in a cold sweat. I remember one dream, it mimicked my mother to try and get me to it. Hearing her screams of pain and calling out my name for help terrified me. While these nightmares were happening, I would have unexplained things happen to me. I remember one night I woke up in the middle of the night, and something grabbed my foot and tugged on it. It startled me, it felt like it was toying with me. It felt like it fed off of my fear. Another time, I had my cousins over and was playing hide and seek on the dark. I had his inside my closet with one of my younger cousins, and while we were hiding, I heard something growl. I grew tense with fear, and I heard my little cousin whisper, asking if I heard that. I could only nod, and we bolted out of the closet. I would wake up with unexplained bruises or scratches some days. One of the more terrifying moments I had when I was 14, was while I was showering upstairs in the shared bathroom between me and my little brother. It was evening, my mother was cooking dinner, and brother and father were downstairs watching Wheel of Fortune. I heard a loud bang on the door, scaring me. I called out, thinking it was either my little brother or father letting me know dinner was ready. When I heard nobody respond, I thought that my little brother was messing with me. A minute later, another, much louder bang came from the door making me jump. I got angry and yelled, thinking it was my little brother again. After I got out of the shower and dressed, I went downstairs and yelled at my little brother asking why he was banging on the door and messing with me. My parents and little brother were confused, telling me that he had been downstairs the whole time with my dad watching Wheel of Fortune. After that, I felt that same raw fear. It was messing with me again. The other terrifying moment was when I saw it again. A year later, I was brushing my teeth in the bathroom. The door was open, and you could look down the catwalk towards the game room, guest bedroom, and stairs leading downstairs. I started to get this eerie feeling, like something wasn't right. I paused while brushing my teeth, looking over towards the stairs. Immediately, body went rigid with fear. The same dark shadow, only it looked like it was crouching on the stairs, its same red eyes staring at me. I immediately look away back at the mirror, brushing my teeth faster trying not to cry as I kept repeating in my head for it to go away and leave me alone. When I was done, I ran into my bedroom and closed the door, turning on every light I had and just cried. Now, I had mentioned the nightmares I had been having before. Well, they finally stopped, but it was very climactic. Still having the same nightmares every other week, sometimes even twice a week. I was terrified of sleep. I wasn't safe when I was awake, or asleep. The very last nightmare I had, was when I was trapped in the same abandoned building as before. I tried to find my way out, running this way and that. I knew at some point, I had to be able to get away from this thing. Somehow, I found a door. It took some pushing, but I managed to get it open. Relief hit me when I saw outside. Trees everywhere, a path leading from the building, and fallen leaves scattered everywhere. I didn't step out, not until I saw what looked like other people running out of the building. It confused me, 'cause I never encountered anyone in these nightmares before. That sudden feeling that I needed to run as well hit me, and I ran with the group. I could see these other people were terrified, which scared me. I ran as fast as I could down the path, and I remember hearing people screaming from behind, something was chasing us and attacking, dragging these people back to the building. One by one, the people around me disappeared, until I was the only one left running. I felt something coming up behind me, dark and terrifying. I tried to run faster, but that was when I felt it grabbing my arm. Everything went dead silent, and I finally heard its voice. "You will never be able to escape me." I suddenly woke up after that, cold sweat and tears, and hyperventilating as I cried. After that, I never had those same nightmares again. I never heard or felt anything strange after that. It was like I had escaped whatever this thing was finally. When I turned 20, I felt like it was finally gone after years of nothing happening. However, I was wrong. When I moved in with my grandmother and father away from my mother at the age of 24, I heard and felt it again. It mimicked my grandmother's voice while I was showering one day. I grew even more anxious about the dark. I would see a dark figure when I would wake up at night looking over me one time. I moved back with my mother to a new city, and we visited Salem. Yes, that's Salem. My mother asked if I wanted to get a reading done, and I was curious and said, "Why the hell not?" I asked this witch about this thing that had been around me all my life, and she said it was a demon. It was originally attached to my father, but found interest in me because I was sensitive and could see it at times. She said I had potential, and it wanted to use me. Now, I don't know if I fully believe in this, but I feel like there might be some truth to what she said. My grandmother and mother both admit that my father had something dark attached to him ever since he had gotten out of prison when I was only 3 years old. So I figure she got that part right. What this thing is, I don't entirely know. I just know it doesn't have good intentions, and loved to torment me as a child. I could have had more encounters with this thing, but I probably don't remember them. I can't explain the nightmares I had, or why the encounters suddenly stopped after that final nightmare. All I know is that this has always terrified me, even now when I'm almost 30. I'm still sensitive, and see things, but I haven't seen this thing since I was a teenager. Now, I'm hoping talking about this doesn't bring it back again. Nothing has happened for the past few years. If it does return, I'm probably going to have to get some serious help to get rid of it. I refuse to live in fear of this thing again. Please comment them if you have faced these type of scary moments.